What if I told you that everything you thought was true about Jim Jones's life was actually untrue? Mama Jones is finally revealing the truth, and it's incredible. The questions you've been asking for years are why Jim's life went so wrong, why there was betrayal, and why there was chaos. Get ready because Mama Jones just revealed the answers, and I can assure you that you won't believe who did it all. In a shocking new revelation, Mama Jones is detailing everything and what she's. The truth is more sinister than anyone could have ever imagined. It's not just a few bad decisions, it's a full-fledged conspiracy. Get ready to hear the untold story. What exactly did Chrissy and Camron do behind closed doors that resulted in Jim's public humiliation? How deeply did they plot against him? Did Chrissy Camron and Jim's closest friends and family members actually set out to destroy Jim's empire? From the inside, does the web of betrayal continue? And you will never again view Jim Jones the same way, so stay tuned because the truth about two here is going to shake the foundations of everything you believed. Mama Jones has finally spoken out after years of witnessing the destruction. But trust me, this isn't just another family drama. What we're dealing with is a betrayal so profound and complex that it's nearly impossible to believe it's real. Jim Jones has been a contentious figure for years, going through public. The question of how someone so strong and self-assured ended up in the mess he is in today has always been there, despite feuds, controversial decisions, and, let's not forget, his undeniable influence in the rap game. If you have been following the drama, you are already familiar with the names that keep coming up when Jim's life falls apart, including Chrissy and Camron. You may be wondering what's new, but the truth is that Mama Jones is now to shed light on the mystery surrounding Jim's death for years. His public humiliation, career setbacks, and relationship issues were too much to ignore. But Mama Jones is drawing connections, and when she does, she paints a negative picture. Did Chrissy and Camron really betray Jim to the point of no return? Mama Jones claims that they did, but what's the real story? The depth of this conspiracy is even more horrifying. It goes beyond simple jealousy or misunderstandings and is about power, control, and the cruel lengths people will go to fully understand the gravity of this revelation. Mama Jones claims to have seen it all firsthand, having seen how Jim's closest friends and family members pulled strings behind his back. To understand the significance of this revelation, we must pause and think back to the years when Jim's empire was flourishing, and he had everything he needed, including loyalty. We all know that Chrissy Lynn has always been a divisive figure in the public eye, and that she has never been shy about her opinions, especially when it comes to Jim's friends and associates. It is easy to think of these relationships as just drama for the tabloids, but what if there is more to the story than what has been reported? According to Mama Jones, the most recent revelations paint a picture of someone who is obsessed with control and would not hesitate to manipulate and destroy in order to get what they want. Then there is Camron, a name that, let's face it, has always carried a lot of weight in the streets as a major figure in the rap scene. Camron built his own empire, but Mama Jones accuses them of being part of a larger scheme to destroy Jim. Before we get into the specifics of how they did it, let's pause to consider the possibility that the people Jim trusted the most were the ones pushing him toward self-destruction. Mama Jones isn't just talking about unimportant things. She's exposing the truth about how Chrissy and Camron intentionally planned Jim Jones's success. Camron's motivations were never as pure as they seemed for years. He's been playing a dangerous game. Jim Jones is not just any celebrity. He is a mainstay in the rap industry, a man who has influenced culture and a respected figure. As such, you can bet that there will be serious repercussions if someone close to him starts to pull strings behind the scenes. However, the truth is that this was not just about business. It was also about relationships, loyalty, and betrayal at the highest level. Trust me, the more you look into this, the more astounding it becomes to understand why it is so important. Had his back, including Chrissy and Camron, as well as those in his inner circle whom he confided in completely. However, What Mama Jones reveals next will drastically change your understanding of these relationships, as she claims that Cam'ron played a significant role in igniting the flame between Jim and Chrissy, and that it wasn't just a case of drama, or egos working behind the scenes to sow doubts, cause chaos, and spread rumors. What was his ultimate goal? To undermine Jim and establish an empire? Or was there something more sinister at play? How does Chrissy's involvement in all of this relate to Mama Jones's theory that Cam'ron was genuinely setting himself up to replace Jim? Mama Jones has a theory that Chrissy is motivated by a desire to manipulate Cam'ron for power and control, but it goes beyond that. Chrissy felt increasingly excluded from Jim's life and career and was under pressure to make decisions that would destroy the foundation Jim had established. By this point, it's clear that this isn't just a simple love triangle or a disagreement over friendship, but here's the twist. As we piece together the puzzle, we start to realize how deliberate and malicious this betrayal really was. Mama Jones wasn't just watching her son's life fall apart from the sidelines. She was also watching as everything Jim had worked for was destroyed by people he trusted. The damage wasn't just emotional. Every move Chrissy and Cam'ron made was calculated. The question is how long Jim will continue to stand by and allow this to happen. People always assume they know what's going on behind the scenes because they see the glitz and glamour, but they don't see the truth. Mother Jones's voice broke the silence like a storm, carrying with it years of unspoken hurt, betrayal, and anger. As she began to speak, the truth spilled out, revealing a side of the story that had never been fully told. It wasn't just about family matters anymore. It was about loyalty, trust, and the extent of this conspiracy. Mama Jones began her remarks, steadily but passionately, to delve deeper into the web of deception, manipulation, and treachery that had torn Jim's life apart. Previously, Jim and Cam'ron were like brothers, supporting one another through thick and thin. But somewhere along the line, things changed, and Cam'ron grew distant, trapping Jim in the middle. Chrissy, Cam'ron, and Jim were all involved in something that turned ugly, and it's time the world knew the real story. Mama Jones paused for a moment, and then everything started to fall apart. Jim would come home and tell me that things were getting tense with Cam'ron and that they were no longer on the same page. Chrissy would always have something to say about it, as if she was trying to drive a wedge between them. It wasn't just about Jim and Cam'ron anymore. It was about her control and her idea of what should be the case. I watched it all at first, in a mixture of pain and disbelief as she continued to describe how Chrissy's manipulation gradually affected Jim's. When people start to change, Cam'ron doesn't just change. He begins to see Jim as a stepping stone, a way to advance in the game and secure his own position. The weight of her words hit him hard because she wanted Jim to be everything she wanted him to be, but she didn't realize that she was ruining him in the process. She wanted him to be the man he once was, but instead she wanted him to fit her idea of what the ideal man should look like. I remember seeing Jim sitting on that couch, just staring into space. He was a shell of the man he used to be, and it wasn't because of the music or the business, but rather because of the people he trusted the most, Cam'ron and Chrissy, who were all trying to shape him. It was like a perfect storm as they both started pulling at Jim from different directions. "He wasn't always like this," Mama Jones muttered, shaking her head. Faith was a loyal friend once, but loyalty only goes so far. The most painful thing was that Jim didn't even see it coming, because he was too preoccupied with his love for Chrissy and his friendship with Cam'ron to realize that they were plotting against him and scheming behind his back, setting him up for failure. Mama Jones explained how Cam'ron's relationship with Jim soured, how old wounds were reopened, and how new ones were created. He was pushed into their idea of what he should be, but no one ever stopped to ask Jim what he wanted. It was clear now that the betrayal was not just about a romantic relationship, but about a long-standing friendship that had turned toxic. Cam'ron started to distance himself both physically and emotionally, and Chrissy was doing the same. Jim's loyalty to his friends, family, and fans was being tested, and no one was there to tell him the truth or show him what was really happening behind the scenes. So when it all hit the fan, he was the last to know, Mama Jones said, her voice trembling slightly. Mama Jones's realization that Jim was not the same person she had known before, not just because of the betrayal, but also because of his shifting behavior, was the turning point in my life as his mother, and it hurt me to see that she was controlling the situation without Jim even realizing it. The weight of the truth made it impossible for me to remain silent after seeing everything that had happened to Jim. It wasn't just about Jim anymore. It was about the harm that Chrissy and Camron had caused to him, to us, and to everything we had built together. The problem with loyalty is that it can be both your greatest strength and your downfall when the wrong people take advantage of it. Chrissy and Camron were better at the game than anyone else, and they knew how to use Jim's love. Jim was too good for me, Mama Jones said in a steady but intensely emotional voice. I saw my son, the one I raised, the one I loved, change into someone I didn't recognize. And it wasn't just the pressure from his career or his fame. It was also the people he had led into his life, people who didn't have his best interests at heart. I'm not doing this for fame or retaliation. I'm doing this because Jim deserves to know the truth, and the world deserves to know who Chrissy and Camron really are. They thought they could destroy him and get away with it, but they underestimated one thing: family. As the tension grew, and the drama unfolded, Mama Jones realized that the fight was far from over. But in the end, Jim was the one who paid the price, and the weight of the betrayal grew more and more unbearable every day. We must talk about the chaos that followed, Jim Jones's life as it fell apart due to betrayal. This wasn't just a public split or a simple argument between no. This was the collapse of an empire that Jim had spent years building. But what happens when the people you trust the most end up pulling you down? Ask Jim. And what do we know about the situation? One thing was certain: she would not remain silent for Jim, her family, or herself any longer. The truth would finally come to light. Let's start with the legal ramifications as the full extent of the betrayal. According to Mama Jones, the emotional destruction wasn't just for show. It struck Jim where it hurt him the most, as evidenced by the way his music career had started to slow down. However, it wasn't just because of age or changing trends. Rather, it was the harm done by his closest friends and family, who he believed had his back. Chrissy and Camron were working behind the scenes to ensure Jim would lose his favor, and the results were disastrous. As it became apparent that Jim's legal team was involved, it should not be surprising that when a well-known person is attacked in this way, legal action starts. According to Mama Jones, Chrissy and Camron threatened to sue Jim, but not for the reasons you might think. Rather, these lawsuits were part of a larger scheme to trap Jim in legal red tape, drain his finances, and keep him in the dark. At one point, Jim was considering going public with it. Jim hesitated, as Mama Jones explains, because he still believed that Camron and Chrissy were somehow redeemable. He didn't want to believe the worst about the people who had been closest to him, but Mama Jones, being the protective mother that she is, didn't have that. He had a massive lawsuit of his own that would have revealed the truth about the shady dealings he claims Camron and Chrissy were involved in. This would have brought the dirty laundry out into the open for the entire world to see. And what could have been more satisfying than that? Jim Jones made his biggest mistake, and as we all know, hesitation kills careers. By the time he realized what was really happening, the financial collapse had already occurred. But let's not forget about the money. When you've spent your entire life achieving success, and someone comes along to ruin your reputation and relationships, the financial toll is unavoidable. Luxury saw right through it. Jim was watching Camron, the master manipulator himself, being forced to answer questions about his role in this whole mess. Chrissy and Camron were secretly arranging deals that siphoned off Jim's wealth while he was preoccupied with the drama. Imagine being at the top of your game. Mama Jones reveals that Cam'ron and Chrissy were responsible for a large portion of Jim's financial decline. She claims that they were pulling strings behind the scenes, causing Jim to make poor investments, take on bad business deals, and ultimately bleed money. This is what happened to Jim when his ventures failed and his assets were. The public backlash had already destroyed Jim's financial stability. But the real monster was the public backlash because, as we've seen in countless scandals, social media has a way of magnifying the rumors once they start them. Let's not sugarcoat it, but Mama Jones claims that Cam'ron and Chrissy weren't innocent and were planning Jim's demise. It wasn't just a financial decline. It was a crash, and the two people he thought he could trust the most were responsible. There was a media frenzy where everyone was playing the blame game. But Mama Jones reveals that Chrissy and Cam'ron were far from innocent in the court of public opinion. They weren't just victims in the story. The public was split, with some supporting Jim because they thought his entire career had been ruined, and others supporting Chrissy and Cam'ron because they felt wronged. What's even more shocking is how quickly public opinion changed, with people starting to wonder if Jim was truly the villain in all of this. Jim was quickly being portrayed as a loser who couldn't manage his personal and professional lives, but Mama Jones won't accept that story. She insists that Jim wasn't only the victim of personal betrayal, but also of a deliberate effort to damage his reputation. Did he deserve the backlash, or did he bring this upon himself? The public's unpredictable nature allowed them to manipulate narrative and feed the media machine with false information and half-truths to ensure that Jim took the brunt of the blame, that Jim Jones's life was destroyed not by accident, but by a well-thought-out plan by the people who claimed to care about him the most. Don't blame Jim Jones for his current situation. The real cause of the chaos wasn't just Chrissy and Cam'ron's egos, it was about control. They wanted to see Jim fail because they wanted to replace him, and they were driven by the need to destroy everything Jim had built so they could rise from the ashes. Cam'ron wanted to become the game's kingpin again, and Chrissy, well, she was only there to assist him in pulling the strings. Now that we know everything, the question is what this means for Jim Jones. Is there any chance that he will recover from the damage that Chrissy and Cam'ron have left behind, or is it too late for him to make a comeback? Mama Jones has expressed her opinion, but do you think Jim will rise from the ashes, or is his career doomed? Did Chrissy and Cam'ron ruin his life, or did Jim just play right into their hands? Finally, do you think there is any chance that Jim will recover from the ashes? We're just getting started, so you can bet that we'll be digging even deeper into this and uncovering more shocking facts that you won't hear anywhere else. If you feel the gravity of this shocking truth and want to stay up to date, please leave a comment below. Turn on your notifications so you don't miss the next bombshell that is about to be revealed. Keep in mind that this isn't just gossip. Discuss real-life events in the comments box below. No one in the scandal world stays silent for very long. So, let's see who you think is really to blame for this chaos. Leave a remark, subscribe, and return soon for the next startling revelation.